We have a special evening for you tonight on our webinar, Wednesday webinar. We have a session all about evaluations and making sure that we're able to meet the needs of our members for multiple reasons in the regular club meetings, and making sure we're able to do effective evaluations so that we can motivate our members. And also, we have a contest coming up soon. For District 21, that contest is a little over a week away, and we will be meeting in Kelowna to have our evaluation speech contest. It'll be a great opportunity for people to test out their evaluation skills, and hopefully, if they're attending this or they watch this afterwards, that they will pick up a few extra tidbits that will make them successful and come away a winner with a trophy. We have with us today two knowledgeable and very talented evaluation mavens, call them that. We have Sherry Morgan and we have Rodney Denno. Sherry Morgan has been with Toastmasters for about 4 years and is currently a member of the Master Motivators, which is an advanced club in Victoria, BC. She's nearly finished the work for her Advanced Communication Silver designation and already has her Competent Leadership designation. Sherry has studied communications and the field of languaging, and she has done extensive personal growth work. There are many guides and guidelines for how to give effective evaluations, all of which have merit. Sherry is going to make a case for the emotional context of an evaluation being as important as any other component for an evaluation's effectiveness. And we have Rodney Denno. Back in early 2011, Rodney decided to enter Toastmasters International Speech Contest. He wrote his speech the morning of the contest and read most of it during the contest. Actually, to say it was a contest is not quite accurate because he was the only one competing. The club is called the Advanced Orators, and one of the clubs that was one of the club's seasoned Toastmasters that seasoned Toastmasters attend to receive a very encouraging evaluation and then have a facilitated 20-minute group evaluation. Working with all the feedback he received, he went on to win not only the area, but the division levels, and then he was able to compete at the district level. That was back when it was all of British Columbia. Seeing firsthand how thoughtful and insightful some of that feedback, that feedback had helped him hone his speech into a much better one, fascinated him. So in order to further understand the value of the feedback, he started some research and write about it. And he quickly discovered that while there's a community of people who share their thoughts and evaluation techniques online, there was no comprehensive evaluation resource available. So he wrote one, the Evaluation Maven Manifesto 2.0. And he published it back in early 2013. Now, all of his writings about speech evaluations have now been downloaded from the Toastmasters portion of his website by about 57,000 people, or 57,000 times, in over 155 countries. Version 3, that's 3, of the Evaluation Manifesto, Maven Manifesto, and a supporting website will be coming out in early May. Version 3 is now 175 pages long, but don't let that stop you from going and downloading it when it's there. It has over 20 different speech evaluation techniques that you can choose from, and you can follow any ones that you feel comfortable about. These resources are free and will always remain free. His intention is to give people the tools and resources that they need to become better speakers and, more importantly, better evaluators. So thank you, Sherry, and thank you, Rodney, for attending this webinar.
Oh, thank you for...
So first off, go ahead,
Sherry. I was just going to say you're very welcome, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's always an honor to have talented people speak about an area or a subject matter that is near and dear to their heart, and it's also of interest to our district and to the members of our district. So, Sherry, just a couple of words before we jump into any of the questions. I have some prepared questions, and then we'll allow questions from the audience. Meanwhile, audience members, we are recording the session, but we do want you to provide some questions and feedback. There's a way to do that. There's a question section on the screen. I can't remember how it's set up on the attendee listing, but there's a place where you can enter in questions. There's also an attendee chat. I'll be looking at both those. If you have questions that you want to have answered, you can start typing them in now. And as you listen to some of the feedback and some of the dialogue, if you have additional questions, please feel free to start typing it in. We're going to do some prepared questions up front, a little bit prepared, I prepared them, but Sherry and Rodney have not necessarily had a opportunity to prepare responses. And then as we get through those, and I see that there's questions coming through, we'll give you an opportunity to have your questions read and responded to. We only do it through typing, so please type in those questions so we get them. Okay, back to Sherry. Give us a little bit over and above what I gave you as an intro. Would you like to add anything that you would like to talk about in general about evaluations before we jump into some of the specific questions?
Thank you. Yes, the main thing that I feel strongly about evaluations is that they aren't judgmental. They don't judge. A person doesn't feel judged. So when I looked up evaluation and judgment in the dictionary, they are synonyms. So it's a little hard, and we live in a world that is black and white, right and wrong, bad and good, up and down, and so on. So we're kind of steeped in that way of thinking. But I've seen a lot of people feel very hurt and inclined to quit a club because the evaluations have been judgmental, given as though they failed, given as though they made some big mistake, or sometimes that there wasn't any positive remarks given. There were only these judgments, even though there was perhaps a lot that was good about their speech. And I guess the other side of it is that there isn't any actual feedback for how the person can improve. So it can really be damaging emotionally to someone's self-esteem to have judgments. And my definition of judgment is to pass a sentence. So when we give an evaluation that looks like a judgment, it's like sentencing someone. You are this way. Well, I would say not. So evaluations are personal, and they can be framed in such a way that that's clear in the evaluation. So I don't know how many minutes you wanted to give me, but that's kind of an overview.
That's great. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that. And by the way, I have some of the concerns that you've raised, and we talked about earlier prior to the call. I fully agree with, and it's important that we get that. I'm frustrated when I see an evaluation that is, everything was great, and this was good, this was good, this was good. That leaves me flat as a speaker. I feel a little bit positive that it was good. You get that big smile, and you go, yeah, it was great, and you go, but I know I messed up on this, I know I messed up on that, I know I could have done this better. And by not giving me that feedback about what it is that gets better, there's no incentive for me to try to improve. And if I want to go on at a speech contest, if I want to go on to the next level, I want to know where I'm falling short or how I can improve. And that skill starts, with that first Toastmaster coming in the door. They see what they like, and they see what they don't like, and you get some feedback from that. But the more that they come, the more that they see, the better the presentations and the speeches that they witness, the better their ability to evaluate effectively and provide good ideas and suggestions on how to improve. And that's what I live for. I live for those really positive, not that the evaluations are positive, but that the experience is positive and that I learn from it. And if I don't learn from that, if I'm not learning something from the speech and from the evaluation I get after a speech, I feel deflated and that I've lost out on something. So I fully agree with you that that there is an emotional component that's very important. I need to listen to it. I know I need to do that. I'm more I'd like to get more of the technical components, but I also want to get something. I want to get something from it. And if I just get a glossed over evaluation, I feel, as I said, and that it was almost a waste of my time. Other than I get an experience, get a little additional stage time, but no feedback. So yeah. Okay, Rodney, you want to give us a little bit of an overview on what your concerns or your thoughts around evaluations?
Sure, I'd love to. So I've thought about this for 7-ish odd years now, almost to the month. And I have too have seen, as both of you have, and I'm sure a lot of other people have, where people have literally left Toastmasters because they've gotten what I call the sledgehammer evaluation, which is somebody who says, I'm just going to tell you exactly what you need to improve on. And that is absolutely awful. And I will usually try and take somebody out to the woodshed after they do that, just to tell them this is not the way we do it in Toastmasters. Toastmasters is supposed to be a safe environment for you to step out of your comfort zone and get positive, valuable feedback. And so over the years, I've actually thought about what words really characterize a good evaluation. So about 1.5 years ago, I distilled it down to these 4 words: insightful, specific, actionable, and encouraging. And I'll just briefly touch on all of them. Insightful is you bringing your wisdom, you bringing your experience, your knowledge to the table, so that as you listen, as you watch, as you hear, you're listening for what's being said, how it's being said, what isn't being said. And you're listening for structure, and you're listening for how that content fits into the structure. All of those things, that's your expertise that you're bringing. And so that allows you to have insight into the speech. Being specific now, when you start giving feedback, if you say, well, your accent really got in the way, so you should really work on that accent, that is not specific and it's not actionable. What I will say to people is, if their accent is getting in the way, I will say something like, your accent, I had trouble hearing certain phrases. So what I would suggest to you is to practice those aspects of your speech that you really think are critical. Slow down, 10% slow down, so that you can articulate more clearly. And talk to a native speaker. So if you're, say, Chinese, you talk to a non-Chinese person, native language English, and ask them, do you understand this? Pick those important parts so that you get, your message comes clearly across, because ultimately it's the message that we're delivering that matters. Actionable. If I say to somebody, you really should correct your accent, that's not really actionable, because that is potentially a long process. And depending on how old they are and how long they've had their accent and how much they care or don't care whether their accent gets in the way of your understanding, they're not going to take any action on it. So it's got to be something they can take action on as well. And then the last one really speaks to what we've been talking about so far, which is encouraging. I used to use the word positive, and now I kind of have a big dislike for the word positive, because it doesn't really capture what I think we need to do, which is to kind of use the French version of encourage. So encourage or instill courage or give people courage by saying, I thought this was really good. I thought this was really good. I thought this was really good. And then there's a couple of things I think you could work on, and say those in specific, actionable, and encouraging ways, so that at the end the person says, the speaker says, I learned something, you, the evaluator, learned something, and the audience sitting there says, and we learned something too, because you were insightful, specific, actionable, and encouraging. So that kind of goes all the way around. Those 4 words really summarize what I've done in terms of distilling into 4 words what I think are the most important aspects of giving a really great, valuable evaluation.
Well, thank you for that. I like those 4 words: the insightful, specific, actionable, and encouraging. And I like the way you use the original French, or the translation, French translation, to add courage. I think that's a very important aspect of it. When a person is up there giving a speech, you want them to feel a bit of courage the next time they go up there. You don't want them to be fearful because they're afraid that they'll make a mistake that was pointed out by an evaluator in the previous session. It shouldn't be a fear of making that mistake. It should be how can I make this better and try to do that.
Right.
That's very important, very powerful. And by the way, I think I saw an example of that during one of the earlier contests this season in our contest, in a speech contest. And it wasn't one of the evaluators, judges, it wasn't an evaluation contest, it was a speech contest. And I saw a person who just didn't improve in an area that they did need to have courage. And maybe that was what the feedback should have been to them, is to encourage them to try things, more vocal variety, more passion, more setting themselves, making themselves vulnerable, because that can be an encouraging, using the direct translation, more of an encouraging factor, especially when you're trying to win an international speech contest. So that's where you need to be. I think you need to be more vulnerable in order to be successful.
I just want to add that that's why we really need club environments that are safe and where people are encouraged to step out of their comfort zone even more and try things. And if it fails, it's like, oh, well, I learned something. And that's the valuable part, is what are you learning? How are you getting better?
So here's an open question for the two of you. I'm going to start, though, with Sherry. Let her throw whatever answer she wants on it. What's the point of having an evaluation contest? What do you think the point is of having that? Sherry, what are your thoughts on that?
The other day I was a judge at a division contest and saw 8 evaluations. And as a member of the audience, I learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work as an evaluator. What worked really well, let's say, because they were all pretty good. They were all, in the contest. But what was really good, and I would say that I would agree with what Rodney was just sharing about being specific, insightful, actionable, and encouraging, and authentic, I would add, because I don't know, sometimes I get the feeling maybe that evaluations are a little bit rote, but just where you're really authentically expressing what you liked and where this person might shine a little more in their next effort and so on. So it's good training to be an evaluator in a contest. It's a little bit scarier, riskier than being at the club level. So I think it really encourages growing in that skill as well. So it's good for the audience and good for the participants.
Yeah. When you say good for the audience, what are you referring to?
Well, what I was saying about myself, as I was a judge in the evaluation and speech contest the other day, but I learned things about what really works. To see 8 evaluations in a row of the same speaker was insightful for me, to see all the different ways a given speech could be evaluated, all the different angles you could come from, and the different moods that evaluations can be given in, and the different specific suggestions, and all that was helpful. It was like a training for me to participate. And I'm assuming, therefore, for others in the audience.
Yes, I would agree with that. And we, somebody in our audience just popped in and said that, in their opinion, that the competition actually pushes people outside their comfort zones, that they do things that they would normally would not do. And when you practice and evaluate it outside of your normal club time, and you discover ways to be more creative and learn your own style. So I think that's one of the things that you get from competing. Rodney, what are your thoughts about competing? What are the benefits of competing, or why do we compete, in your opinion?
Well, as you might know, I love to compete, and I love contests. I think contests do 2 things for the contestant. They do a lot of other things, but they do 2 things for the contestant. One is they burn into you through the experience of having to listen to a speech and then compose an insightful, specific, actionable, encouraging, and hopefully humorous that really engages the audience and speaks obviously to the judges. So those experiences of being up in front of a group of people in a competitive environment, and competition does something to us. Competition is very different. I know people who can stand up and give a great evaluation in a club where the word competition isn't used. But as soon as you add the word competition, there's a whole new feeling attached to it. And for me, that really burns in the experience, because you practice a lot more, you think a lot more about what an evaluation is, how to structure it, how to add in humor, how to be insightful and specific, so that you can impress upon the judges that you are the one who should be given the trophy. So there's that aspect to it that really burns it in. The other aspect is actually, to my mind, has nothing to do with evaluations. It has to do with just speaking in front of a group. So it's, to my mind, it's a little bit of, I almost hesitate to use the word showmanship, but it's more like a table topic, part table topic and part deep insight into something that you just listened to. So a speech evaluation is really, the question becomes the speech. What about the speech was great? Where it could be improved? How do I say this in a really motivational, encouraging, inspirational, erudite way to this person and to the audience and to the judges, especially, because you're there to impress them. So for me, an evaluation contest really allows you to take it up to a whole, as the people on SNL say, a whole nother level.
Okay, so I'm going to put you guys on the spot for a moment and ask you to rate evaluation contests in terms of the speech contests that we have annually. So within District 21, we have not had a, what's that contest called? I'm drawing a blank on it.
Table topics, tall tales, humorous.
Yeah, tall tales. So what we typically have is the International Speech Contest is not debatable. We have to have that. But optionally, we can have humorous, tall tales, table topics, and evaluation. Where would you rate evaluation in that list? And I'll go with you, Sherry, first.
I would have to say it's number 2. So speech and evaluations, just because those are the 2 foundational parts of a meeting. And evaluating well can really help a person speak well as well. But it was a toss-up, because I think the humorous speech contest is priceless, in that for me it's difficult to be humorous in that way. I can be humorous sometimes in my life, impromptu or something, but to practice a speech and put humor in is a challenge for me. But I know how valuable it is. So it really is a great skill. So I would put that as a close third. And
I only needed word to know where evaluation was, but I appreciate it.
I know.
I don't want to get into anything that gets into a major debate, but I like that comment. So, Rodney, where would you put evaluations? I know I'm talking to a biased group, by the way.
I think I'm highly biased. I think international speech and the speech evaluation contest really are like yin and yang. They're opposite sides of the same coin. And whereas this international speech really shows the audience and allows the competitors to really hone the craft of crafting a wonderful speech, typically an inspirational or motivational speech. The evaluation contest really shows people how good you can be at giving feedback. And to me, those 2 things are at the core of what Toastmasters is. Leadership is still dependent upon people being able to speak well, share their vision, share their ideas, discuss things, but equally, good leadership is about giving good, great feedback. And so that's why I would say, if we only could have 2, those are the 2 we need to stay with.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, next question. How how much of the evaluation is for the recipient or the evaluatee, is that a word, the person who's being evaluated, versus for the benefit of the evaluator themselves? So start with you, Sherry.
That's a really good question. Well, it seems on the surface that it's all about the person being evaluated, and that would have to be, to be a valuable evaluation, I think that would have to be by far the preferred or the biggest percentage. One of the comments, I did a speech a few months ago that was about evaluating versus judging. And one of the comments that a person had made was something about how when the evaluation is more judging, it seems like it's more about the evaluator, like being right. It's about the evaluator being right. So I think when an evaluation is done very effectively, it's really about the person being evaluated. And learning to evaluate effectively is a really helpful skill for the person who's doing the evaluation as well. So percentage-wise, perhaps it's 75% for the person who's being evaluated and 25, just to pick a number, and 25% for the person who's doing the evaluation.
I'm happy with those percentages, just because I understand where you come from. A good explanation. Rodney, how about for you?
So I'm going to be, I'm going to do some funny math here. I'm going to say it's 100% for 3 audiences, right? For the evaluator, because this is really the first time the evaluator has actually heard themselves give the evaluation. So they're actually learning about how their brain is putting all of this information together in an evaluation speech, whether it's competition speech or a club level speech. So they're learning a lot about themselves and about what they know and how they can say that. So that's 100% learning for them. The audience is one of the recipients that nobody ever seems to talk about. The audience is there. They all have their own opinions. And what they would like to do is have the evaluator actually give them a little bit more insight than they got from listening to the speaker. And obviously the speaker should get 100% of it as well, because they've stepped out of their comfort zone. They've taken the time to create a speech. They deserve, they want, and hopefully they will absorb that insight and wisdom and encouragement that the evaluator has shared. So I think it's a win-win-win all the way around. I wouldn't give percentages out at all. I'd say I get as much out of an evaluation as I think I give to the speaker and as I give to the audience.
So by your math, it's 100, 100, 100. By my math, that works out to 33 and a third for each. So we'll stick with that. I've just got to factor you in, buddy.
I like it better.
Okay, so there is a lot of different methods for evaluation. I think you just wrote in your introduction, or had it in your introduction, there's 20 different evaluation styles or tools in your version 3 of the Evaluation Maven Manifesto. I start with you, Sherry, because I don't think we need to go through all 20 of these, but I'd like to know what would you recommend for a new Toastmaster giving an early evaluation? What style would you recommend for them? And then what would you recommend for a more polished Toastmaster giving an evaluation for a let's do it this way. We'll do it first from the eyes of a junior Toastmaster giving the evaluation. What style do you think that a junior Toastmaster should give when they're doing an evaluation, regardless of whether they're talking to a junior Toastmaster, a newbie, or someone who's been around for a long time? Do that one first.
I guess the newbie, perhaps the easiest one for people that I know of anyway. I'd love to know more what Rodney's 26 are, but the sandwich approach, where you have one or two really positive things, something that they can improve upon, and then complete with one or two more positive feedback approaches. That seems like an easy, sort of manageable one for people who are just beginning as evaluators.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you for advanced speakers in a minute, but Rodney, what do you think for a person starting off, for a newbie?
Well, everybody seems to, the Toastmaster standard is sandwich, right? Say something good, say something encouraging, which could be taken negatively by the person, and then sandwich that again with something positive. I kind of lived with that for a couple of years, and then it was like, there's got to be something more, especially when I started researching this. I think the one that I use that works, if I just drop into a club, I don't know the speaker, I have no background whatsoever, I use what's called HSF, heard, saw, and felt, right? Talk about what you heard. Pick something positive, the tone of voice, or the clarity of the voice, and maybe something that maybe the voice was a little low. So something to say positive about it, something where you could improve. What you saw, did the person stand there like a TED Talk, or did they run around like Tony Robbins, right? But comment on it in the context of what they said, because if their speech was about something that where staying still was good, say that to them. Or if they could move around a bit more, tell them, during this part of your speech, I thought maybe it would be good for you to move a little bit more or speak to different aspects of the different parts of the audience. And feel. So heard, saw, and felt. Every speech makes us feel a certain way. We're either bored, inspired, motivated, brought to tears, laughing our heads off. Talk about that. Talk about how it made you feel. And those three things, we have eyes, we have ears, and we have feelings. We can walk into any situation and use heard, saw, felt at the drop of a hat.
Now, is that something that you think that a newbie Toastmaster could do?
Absolutely, because they have feelings, they have eyes, and they have ears. And all they have to do is think what was good about that in those three areas.
Okay, good. Okay, now I'm going back to you, Sherry. If you had an advanced speaker, someone who's been around for a while, a good advanced Toastmaster, and they're doing an evaluation for let's go with it as a new Toastmaster. So it's a person who's experienced, been around for a while, got at least an AC something or other, and doing an evaluation of somebody who's doing their icebreaker, for example. Or let's say their second speech, because icebreaker is not fair, but let's say the second speech. What kind of, would you use a different evaluation technique? Or would you change the evaluation process a bit?
I would use, as far as a technique, I don't know names of techniques, so I can't speak from that point of view. But I would be softer with somebody who is brand new. I would be more encouraging. I would certainly be clear that I was delivering. I would make sure they knew what I loved about their speech. And as Rodney said, how I felt. But, I loved it when you said such and such. I really felt compassion when I heard this. Or, that kind of encouraging, upbeat, indicating that you've listened and you've appreciated what they've said and what they've talked about and how they've shared their life, etc. Whatever can be really, really encouraging. And, I might still use this as if it's their icebreaker, that's, anyway, I think that would be the main thing. And then the softer, I would suggest you try seeing if you can relax your hands at your side next time, or something, whatever it is that's an easy thing for them to take on for the next attempt.
Rodney, what are your thoughts? You're now an experienced evaluation maven, doing an evaluation for a person doing let's say their second speech. What style do you think is appropriate?
So if they're doing their second speech, I wouldn't consider that they're experienced yet. I would say...
No, but you as the evaluator are. You are the experienced evaluator.
Okay, but I'm still evaluating speech number 2.
Yes.
Right. So if I'm an experienced evaluator, I want to bring... so this is where I've got to broaden it out a bit more, because when I evaluate people, quite often I will contact them a week ahead of time. I will get to know them. I will get to know their speech. I will get to know their personal objectives as well as the manual or the speech objectives, so that by the time I reach the speech, I actually have a fairly good understanding of who they are, so how I can couch my evaluation and what their speech is. So I've got a lot more insight already into their speech, so that when I actually listen to them deliver it, I'm already partway into that, fairly deep into the speech, so I can be a lot more insightful. So as an experienced evaluator, or as if you want to call a maven has got broad experience in terms of speech structure, how the content should be organized within a speech structure, how to use your body to convey emotion, how to use your voice to convey emotion, to engage people, how to use eye contact. So I would, in my evaluation portion, that 3 minutes right after the speech, I would say the three things that I thought were the most important things in that speech, the things that absolutely make that speech sing. And then I would point out 2 things that if those 2 things were done, in my opinion, that would really improve the speech. But that's what I'm doing for the speaker at the time and for the audience. Afterwards, I would get together with the speaker again and talk in more depth about the different thoughts and things that I have. So for me, an evaluation is not simply 3.5 minutes delivered in a room. It's quite a long process. That in itself helps you develop your speaking skills. Forget about the evaluation skills now. Doing that helps you develop your speaking skills in a really good way as well.
Okay, now, would either of you change the style if you were evaluating an advanced speaker? So we'll start with you, Sherry.
All right. What comes to mind is a situation where someone who I knew was a really advanced speaker, and I felt that they really did not do a very good job of their speech. They have in the past. I mean, I know them well enough and know that they're a good speaker normally, but in this case, they just were ill prepared and maybe, lots of things. It has happened once at least where I was fairly critical. I didn't sugarcoat it much at all. And just was pretty straight about what didn't work. And anyway, that's not what a recommended style in general, of course, but if it's someone who's a really advanced speaker, I think that I kind of feel like, well, why not in this particular case? But in general, I think my main thing is that I really want people to make the evaluation personal, to make it really clear that this is my opinion or my what I felt when you delivered the speech, or what I think you could improve on, as opposed to this is what you did, this didn't work or that didn't work, which sounds like it's me telling the truth about that. I don't know the truth. I just have my own reaction or my own response. So I think that's really a very important point that I like to see in evaluations, is that they're not spoken as though they're a truth, but they're spoken as though this is how it was for me. This is what I love. This is what I think you could do differently, etc. Not you did this or you didn't do that or that kind of thing.
Rodney.
So speaking to an experienced speaker,
yes,
evaluating a experienced speaker, I'm going to give you 2 examples of where I was evaluated really well and really horribly. so that I can give you what I felt, and then I'll talk to you about how I do it with experienced speakers. I was a member of a club called Competitive Speakers Vancouver a couple of years ago, and I got an evaluation. So we actually do paper evaluations in a competition style, and the person who evaluated me gave me 100% on every one of them. Now, I knew that was total bollocks, right? But I saved that piece of paper for like 2 months so I could look at it. It made me feel good, right? In other words, even experienced speakers who have spoken still need to have that feeling of, yeah, right? Even if they know it's not quite true. Now, the downside is, I'll give you an example of where I was just about murdered. I was doing the Raven. So I was doing a speech having to do with the poem by Edgar Allan Poe called The Raven. And it's a 10-minute, poem. And after I had done it, I had spent probably 15 hours practicing it. And after I had finished, the person got up and they went on for about 2 minutes about how he had heard, these great actors in Britain and they had done it so well. And then he turned to me and he said, "You did such a horrible job."
Geez.
And then he went on to say, "And I really can't evaluate you because it was just so bad." And he did that in front of about 15 people. I felt crappy, and I've got a pretty thick skin, but that really that was like a little whip, So I know what it feels like to get an evaluation that I know is not true, but really makes you feel good. And I know how it feels to get an evaluation that is horrid. So from those experiences, what I've learned over the years is talk to the speaker. Ask them, how much do you want me to tell publicly versus privately? I won't mention this person's name, but the person I'm thinking about has been on the world stage, and they have a very, very, they're very sensitive to feedback. And this person that I'm thinking of won't actually be in the same room to listen to the feedback that they're getting. That's how sensitive they are. So you can be an extremely good, accomplished, polished speaker and still be extremely sensitive to feedback whatsoever. So I always take the opportunity to ask people, if I was to say this, would you feel upset? And I'll say, they may say, well, why do you want to say that? Well, for the audience's sake, if I was to say that, would you be upset? If they would say, yes, I would be upset, I'm not going to go there. So I will talk to them and find out what they're comfortable with. And then I will, because I learned a long time ago in business, a good rule of leadership. And I think that's what a good evaluation is. It's leading somebody somewhere to a better place. A good rule of leadership is praise publicly and constructively criticize privately. And so if you've got some really negative things to say about the speech, don't say them publicly. Take the person aside and say, there's a couple of things that I really think you could work on, right? But you got to know the person, and so you really got to take a chance. You got to take the opportunity to get to know them before the speech, and then meet with them after the speech. So I don't simply, if I'm going to come into a room and evaluate an accomplished speaker, I will usually default to something like heard, saw, felt, and a method I call the crown technique. So 3 good things, 2 things for improvement, say them in that order, make a summary, and then speak to the person afterwards.
Got it. Thank you. By the way, I saw several of the 3-2-1s in the past division contests. I like the 3-2-1. I don't like it when somebody says, I'm going to give you 3, I'm going to give you 2. I don't like when people say, I'm going to tell you what I heard, what I saw, what I felt. I don't want them to tell me what they're going to tell me. I want them to just go into it, jump into it. But we're talking about contests, and we're coming up to the contest season. So you have a test speaker, and you're going to do an evaluation of a test speaker, and you don't know, presumably, the test speaker from anybody. You've not heard them speak before, and you don't know the subject, and they could be doing something as wild as doing a tall tales in their speech for the evaluation contest, or they could do something a very traditional inspirational speech. They could do a good job, they could do a lousy job. And they could be an experienced speaker, or they could be an early speaker. You just don't know. So, Sherry, what's your thoughts on what's your style for evaluating them?
Encouraging. I would definitely come up with some very encouraging, positive feedback that's specific, and I would very much try to come up with some really good suggestions for improvements, and of course summarize. So I like that 3-2-1 idea as well. I wasn't familiar with that as a particular style, but of course the summary is important. So to summarize what worked well, to summarize quickly what the 2 points of improvement, and just be an encouraging. Yeah, I think I want to just say that I didn't come down hard like a judgment way with this one speaker, but in a concrete, specific way. But I guess I wasn't as acknowledging as I would be almost always in really 99% of the time or more in this particular case. So I hope I didn't give that impression that I was harsh and judgmental, like the example that you gave, Rodney. Never have I been like that. But, just
that was
specific.
The worst reading of the Raven I've ever heard. You tortured me.
Oh, that would be awful.
Yeah.
It would be terrifically awful. No, I would be really, almost always I'm encouraging and try to be specific with the feedback and what I saw or heard or felt, or and what actions that I specifically see they could try to do the next time to improve things.
So Rodney, speech contest, evaluation contest. You got a test speaker. What's your preferred style?
Well, so that's the terror of it all, right? It could be everything from an informative speech to a tall tale, humorous, motivational, inspirational. So you can't come thinking, okay, I'm going to think this way. You have to kind of come with a flexible mind. So there's 2 phases, and I wrote a document a few years ago called How to Win the Speech Evaluation Contest. So I'm basically going to tell you some of the ideas in there.
By the way, is that posted on your website?
That is, yeah. There's 2 aspects to it. One is the things that you can control. So you can control your understanding of the rule book. You can control what's the structure and what is best practice for a motivational or inspirational or tall tale or humorous speech. So you can come with a lot of insight already into the different forms and have a good idea of what certain elements should be there and how they should be linked together. For example, in an inspirational speech, it's almost exclusively storytelling. You take a look at any of the winners of the last 10, 15 years of the International Speech Contest, almost every one of them has 4 or 5 stories in there that they link together and they weave their message throughout each of those stories. A good example is Muhammad Khatani, The Power of Words. Wonderful speech. It's an informative speech that he made inspirational. The structure is beautiful. He gets some humor right at the beginning. So when I'm listening to a speech, if it starts out humorous and it looks like it's humorous, I'm going to start to think about what elements of humor should be there, right? Jokes, physical humor, verbal humor, how the person says it, what their facial features are like, how they move their body. If it's an inspirational speech, are they solid? Do they feel like this is somebody I can trust that I can listen to? So you've got to bring all of that insight into the evaluation of any speech that you see. And then you've got to take it and say, okay, how am I going to feed that back? And this is where I kind of do now default to what I call the crown technique. So 3 positives, the third most positive, second most positive, the thing that made the speech really sing for me, and then a couple points for improvement, and then wrapping it up. But you've got to differentiate. So your job as the performer up there, not the evaluator, but the performer, your job is to differentiate yourself from all other 7, 8, 9 contestants. And you do that partly through humor, partly through your performance, partly through the insight, and partly through the encouragement and specificity of your evaluation. So this is why I think evaluation contests are so good, because they bring so many different elements together.
Wow. Now, by the way, I have heard of
great.
the crown method slightly differently. On the 3-2-1, 3 was the 3 things that were great, the 3 good things. The 2 were the 2 areas for improvement, and 1 is the thing that's the memorable. So you would then do a summary, but then do a summary because then you want to end on a high note. So the last one would be, so you do the 3, the 2, the summary, and then the thing that was memorable for you as an individual. I'm not sure if that's a variation on your 3-2-1.
It's actually a different technique. 3-2-1 is actually known as the 3-2-1 technique. The crown technique, I came up with the word crown because, in a sense, what I wanted to do was put a crown on the person's head. And so, to me, there's 5 jewels in the crown. There's a shiny one, a more shiny one, and a super shiny one, and then there's these 2 dull ones. And so, what I'm saying is, this part of the crown, it was awesome. Here are the 3 most important jewels in your speech. And here are these 2 gems that if you just shine them up a little bit more and this is where you have to be very specific and actionable. If you shined up those 2, that's me putting the crown on their head, and that's what I want. I want them to feel like they have a crown on their head at the end of my evaluation. So that's the visual that I use, and that's the visual I created because I wanted to have a visual that was very easy for me to simply, under duress, very simple for me to simply add those 5 things in. So it's very different.
I could add to your crown a little bit. The crown is typically, if you look at the triple crown, like the award we give for 3 education awards, you got I'm trying to share it with my camera. I'm not sure if it's coming up. You have the 3. Usually the middle tine is the highest of the 3, and there's a space between the 3 tines. There's 2 spaces. So the 2 spaces would be your 2. So the 3 tines would be your 3 areas. The 2 spaces would be the 2 areas for improvement. And because you got the tall tine in the middle, it is the 1-2 that really pops, or that you could use for the summary. So it may help with your visual.
That's what I call the triple decker, right? Bread, meat, bread, meat, bread, right? So the breads are the positive ones, and the meats are the points for improvement or encouragement. So I call that a triple decker.
Okay. We only have a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to get your final words on evaluations in general, but we have just moved on to pathways in District 21, District 96, all of Region 1 are now on pathways. Any thoughts on what's going to happen? I know that the documentation for evaluations for pathways or for the objectives is a lot clearer. I think that there's some going to be some interesting capabilities there. Do you see any changes from your own opinion, Sherry, on what's going to happen with pathways and with evaluations going forward?
I just registered the other day for the pathways, for my pathways path, and looked at the overall map kind of the levels and I forget all the names of the steps there, but I thought that looked really interesting, and I loved, for example, how the second speech is one that you deliver and then you apply all of the feedback and deliver the same speech again. I think that's brilliant.
And then provide a speech on the feedback on what you learned from it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. I thought that's brilliant because that really trains people to pay attention to the evaluations and specifically apply things, and delivering a speech a second time with that kind of feedback I think that could be monumental in terms of improving as a speaker and as an in the evaluation process. I haven't looked deeply at the evaluation side of Pathways yet, other than that one aspect I just spoke of, so I don't know how to comment any further than that.
That's okay. Rodney, any comments on that? Where we are?
Yeah, I gave my first Pathways evaluation to an icebreaker last Thursday. And what I did was take the opportunity to talk about the 3 pages of the evaluation. So the first page is, and this is what I like, there's probably 40 or 50 prompting questions, in terms of the different aspects. So what was their voice like? What was their body movement like? What was their message and that sort of thing? So that page is great for prompting people to think more deeply about it. I think we can be quite insightful. We just sometimes freeze up, especially newer Toastmasters. So that page allows people to think a little bit more because they're prompted with questions. The second page is just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And so you circle, for the different questions, you circle which ones you thought, how good they were. And then the first page is the name of the speech and a few written comments. So I think, and then there are other aspects that Sherry's already talked about. So I think it's a big step forward, Pathways. But at the same time, I don't think my evaluation Maven has competition yet. I think there's still very much a market for people who want to really, for me, the Maven, what I call the EMM, is really for people who want to dive very deeply into public speaking and look at it from the evaluation side, but also from the speaking side, because they're really two sides of that same piece.
Thank you. By the way, we got a minute left. Do you want to give a little plug for your website?
So the website right now is called, it's my corporate website where I built a page called Toastmasters. So it's EWOLIVING.com and then /Toastmasters.php. That is going to disappear in about a month and a half when the new website that I'm developing is, so it's not going to be just Toastmasters. There'll be Toastmasters materials that I've written that have nothing to do with evaluations. And then I've created a whole new website called the Evaluation Maven Manifesto Project, so EMMP. And it'll have a huge amount more material on there. So unfortunately, that has not been launched and probably won't be launched until early May. But when it does, I'll send you a link. You can share it with District 21 if you wish. I'll be sharing it with the world.
We'll put it on our website, and we'll put it on the Facebook page. We also have, I also have an education group within our Facebook page, so a separate Facebook page for the education for VP Eds. But I will post it out there on a number of sites once I get it, so people can see it. I think it's valuable information.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. I made a decision quite a few years ago that whatever I do in the evaluation side of my writing will always be free. So the book in PDF form will always be free. I'm also making it available for people to buy it off Amazon if they want a print copy of it. But there's no need to buy a print copy if you're satisfied with the PDF. That's how much I believe that evaluations are a crucial part of our development.
Well, I appreciate that, and it looks like we're also getting some thanks from our audience. And I have been asking the questions that have been coming up, so we've cleared it all off. There are no outstanding questions, and I don't see any further comments. If anyone has any last questions, throw them out there. And if I don't see any, I'm going to... They're coming up. So thank you so much, Sherry, for joining us at the last minute, and Rodney for giving us your time and sharing with us your wisdom, both of you, your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience in doing evaluations. Really appreciate that. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And Rodney, thank you so much. I really look forward to seeing your material and appreciated getting to know you.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm sure we'll meet at some point.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I'm going to close this meeting.